It's time to get the breakdown started. 1, 2, 3. First up, 10 observations.
Just took his guy and just boom, put him right on the ground.
It's First and 10.
Yeah, and we got fancy new imaging for it too. I'm pretty pumped about it. Here we go. 10 observations from the Commanders. 29-28 win over the Ravens. First one, most important one.
Number 1.
Terry McLaurin's hurt. I didn't say it would all be exciting. This was the risk. And I think playing Sam Howell last night, perfectly defensible decision. It's something that we talked about. I don't know that it would have been worth it because at the end of the day, while Howell looked great, we'll get to that in number 2, he did do it against Baltimore's 2s. Part of the problem of playing Howell, though, is you had to play everyone else to give him the best chance to succeed, and that included Terry McLaurin. And the good news here is that the team says they're optimistic about his availability for week 1. The good news here is that it's nothing serious in the long term, although toe injuries are scary. And the good news is Jahan Dotson is a little monster, and he is coming for DBs across the NFL. So you have depth at the position. Curtis Samuel was effective last night. De'Ami Brown was effective last night. And they have, they can always use Gibson in creative ways. Like, they've got weapons. And in that way, they're not as screwed as another team might be if they lost a Terry McLaurin caliber weapon. But let's not get this twisted. You still potentially are going to be without, at least week 1, a Terry McLaurin caliber weapon. This was a bit of a self-imposed error here to leave Terry in that long, even though you wanted to get the reps. I get it, but you don't get anything for winning this game. Winning better than losing. Losing, player like Terry McLaurin, way worse than winning the game. So, not going to crush Ron. It's not indefensible. It is the number 1 story. It's the most important thing that comes out of this game. And, not to go all medical dork on you here, but your toes are really important. And they can potentially cause other problems if you rush back because your gait changes, right? So a guy like McLaurin gets out there on a bad toe. He runs a little funky. He winds up putting a little extra pressure on the ankle. Now you got a bad ankle. Now you're compensating for the ankle. Now you got to figure out, okay, well, my ankle hurts. I got to make that hurt less. And you do something funky with your knee, then your hip, then your back. It just goes up the chain. That's how these things work. And the toe is the first step in the kinetic chain. And it happens to be a really important one because it's the one that makes contact with the ground. So, they outsmart medical people. They don't need me to tell them, but I'm telling you, I would be very surprised if McLaurin practices before at least Wednesday before the Arizona game. There's just no reason to, unless they are able to take the testing and, next week it's healed. It was that minor. But taking it really easy with him and John Allen, by the way, with plantar fasciitis, yikes, man. Your 2 captains, your 2 team leaders might not be 100% week 1, which is obviously not ideal. By the way, here was Ron Rivera last night on McLaurin after the game.
There was an x-ray, it was negative, and so, they're just going to treat it day by day.
Okay, I'm sorry I played that. Off we go to more positive things.
Number 2.
Sam Howell showed up big time last night. His first game after being named the starter. Look, it's the Ravens backups, but you take the test that's in front of you. You can't take the AP exam in first grade. You just take the one that they give you, and you hope to spell all the words right. Unless it's a math exam, then you get all the equations right. You know the drill. You do what you're asked to do. And last night, outside of really 2 plays, 3, 4 if you want to count a couple of errant throws, but two quasi-major mistakes, the sacks, which we can talk about. Outside of that, he was awesome. And by the way, on the series where he takes the sacks, he makes other big plays. You come take a sack on second down, you got third and super long, and you drill Colt Turner between the 8 and the 5 after buying a little time in the pocket. Are you kidding me? That's major league quarterbacking. And the thing that I think that impresses me the most about Sam Howell is he is so freaking calm in the pocket. And that is even when there is pressure, and he knows there's going to be pressure. But here's the thing about pressure. If you have solutions, and especially when the solution is, we got enough guys to block this, you don't need to rush. Because now all of a sudden, you should have numbers on the back end. If they're bringing 7 instead of 4, they're down 3 on the back end. Sweet. We got enough eligibles out there still that one of our guys can shake loose. And you saw him time and time again Maybe a little slide, maybe a little flush. Sometimes he had to run. That's fine. Sometimes that is the solution to pressure, is buy yourself enough time, let the pressure come after you, then use the fact that you're genuinely fast to run away from it. And those big fellas chasing you aren't as fast as you. And Sam did that a couple times. But there's even one or two plays where he faces pressure and he just sits there and he's like, we're good. We got this. Wait for it. Dart. Can't do it better than that. Sam was really, really good last night. 2 quick notes on the sacks. We went way deeper, frankly, than we probably should have on Take Command on them. I felt bad because we spent so much time breaking them down that, like, the good stuff section and the 2 sack section wound up being equal time. And I was like, that's not really resembling of his game. So if that came off as negative, apologize. That's on me as the host of the pod. If you listen to our breakdown there. But I'll quickly go through the 2 sacks because it's the same exact thing. Basically, the defense dictates a slide, and then they overload away from the slide. So they know, hey, this is how they're going to protect this. And remember, these 2 teams practice against each other this week. So, it's not that hard for the Ravens to do this. And if the Commanders had been game planning, they probably would have had better solutions for this. But also sometimes, DCs get paid too. It's the kind of stuff that if Jack Del Rio did this, we'd be complimenting him. And it's straight out of what Wink Martindale did to this team last year. You get the slide going right. You bring a couple extra players off the left. The quarterback's got to realize that he's hot. The first one, Sam just got to get the ball out. He's probably got Jahan on a quick out that he could probably complete. At the very least, he could have gotten the ball at someone's shoes, not take the sack. I will give him credit on the second time. He realized that he was toast. I don't even know if there's anything he could have done on that one, but he cocooned up, made sure he didn't have a sack fumble situation. So he at least gets a little bit of awareness credit post-snap, even if they did not have the right protection called pre-snap. Overall, 19-25, $188, 2 touchdowns and a half. That's some good footballing, kiddos. That's a 370-yard, 4-touchdown game if you extrapolate it out. Take that any day of the week, plus a 2-minute drive. And that throw to De'Ami Brown. Woo! Love that. Overall, offense, the efficiency to the playmakers, how often Terry got the ball, how often Jahan got the ball, 7 targets, a lot of them coming right after Terry gets out. Curtis gets his touches. Cole Turner gets his touches. How about a half of football with the ones where you don't come out being like, oh, that guy needed the ball more. Gibson got some. Robinson got some. Like, the fact that this team goes up tempo and they actually are going to convert and get first downs means there's going to be enough plays for the playmakers to get balls. And that is extremely exciting for a team that was the exact opposite last year. All right, continuing on down the list, our observations from the game. 1st and 10, we call them.
Number 3.
All right, pass protection plans matter, which is a fairly obvious statement. But why am I saying that after last night? You could see, if you have the nuanced eye to do it, how Eric Bieniemy thinks about protection. Step 1, mixing up of play calls. You got to keep defenses honest. A mix of screens, quick game. Like, you want to fire off the ball, great. We're getting the ball out before you even, get your head up out of your stance. They had a couple of those in there. You want to sit back because the defense or the pass rush solution to quick game is to get your hands up. You want to do that and slow your pass rush? Fine. We'll take advantage, take some deeper drops, try to push the ball down the field. Okay, you want to come get us because we're in deeper drops. Now we hit you with a screen, some smart screening, third and like medium. It's not a super common screen play call situation. Bieniemy gets one for a first down last night. But it's beyond that. It's max protect in certain situations. It's amazingly executed chip help last night. If you want to have real fun and feel really smart going back and watching this game, pull it up, start watching the Commanders offense, watch Antonio Gibson on every snap that he's in. Because on 3 or 4 of them, he's going to go smash a defensive end. And what was different, I feel like, this week versus some other times in practice, and even I think this happened once or twice in the Cleveland game, is sometimes chips are actually not helpful for an offensive lineman because they set a certain way and they're in position, and then the running back chips the D end out of the way. And now he's got a free path because the offensive lineman was set where he thought he was going. No, Antonio Gibson chipped those linemen. Like, say the O lineman would set a little bit inside, telling the defensive end, hey, man, I'm going to give you a little bit. I'm not letting you win inside. You want to beat me? Go outside. Haha, tricked you. Here's Gibson. Bang, coming from the outside. Knocks him right back in. That is exactly how you do that. And from a route concept standpoint, they did it in situations where then that back could leak to the flat. and there's once or twice where that either the back got the ball or that opened up a little bit of space in a different area of the field because the linebacker had to pull up onto the back or the DB had to pull up onto the back in the flat, creating a larger window for Howell on a downfield target. These details matter, and they were on display time and time again last night. I just think that Eric Bieniemy might be good at this offensive coordinator thing. Might know a thing or two.
Number 4.
Y'all, Jahan Dotson's going to have a monster year. Last night, he had 7 targets. He played a half. Like, what? Anthony, I wish we had gone back before the game and we had taken a look at Jahan Dotson's targets for every game and Terry McLaurin's targets for every game last year. How many times do you think combined they got 7 targets in a game?
Combined?
Like McLaurin 7+ target games, Dotson 7+ target games.
0.
I don't think it's 0.
All right, maybe like 4.
Yeah, I would say 4 or 5. Tell you what, can you look that up for me?
Yep.
And we'll
you
circle
said
back to it.
7 plus combined.
Yeah. So no, 7. Either one of them has 7 targets.
Okay. Yeah, probably like 4.
Yeah, that's what we're looking up. All right, so we'll get back to that. Jahan had 7 last night in a half of a preseason game. This dude's going to have at least 85 catches, if not over 100. He's going to have over 1,000 yards. Hammer every single freaking over you can find on Jahan Dotson and then pray that he stays healthy because this kid is a monster. His route running nuance, the smoothness with which he does it, you'd see him get downfield and it doesn't even look like he's running and then he'd be able to just stop on a dime, come back, but he's 4.3 fast. He's flying. It's just, and his catch radius is great. His hands are phenomenal. Like, he's just so quarterback friendly. I mean, I did not, like, when I did the draft a couple years ago, because I anchored our draft coverage the year they took him in the first round, I had a whole list of receivers. He was not one that I had really looked at for first round draft coverage. It was a reach by most independent analysis. They stole that kid at 16 2 years ago. They deserve so much credit for it. He's so freaking good. And I think, again, whether Terry is starting the season on inactive or not, like, I think Jahan's going to lead this team in catches this year as long as he plays, 15, 16 games. Nevertheless, if he can play all 17. Just insane production potential from him. Last thing on the offensive side of the ball from last night.
Number 5.
Chris Rodriguez, fumble. That is not good. But Eric Bieniemy is of a philosophy that if you were to, say, fumble the football, we're going to go right back to you, especially in the preseason. We're going to build your confidence. And it matters because you want to know who was the best running back on the field as a rusher last night? Part due to opportunity, but it was Chris Rodriguez. Again, he was really good. Averaged over 6 a carry, which is actually an improvement over his 5+ a carry in the first game. Like, he's been sensational outside of one carry where his arm got peeled off the ball. Can't happen. Dudes are peeling at your arms all the time in the NFL. It's not like something special happened there. That's a bad fumble. But literally the first offensive snap after that, Bieniemy gets him the ball, and I freaking love that from Bieniemy, and I love that from Chris Rodriguez to come back and continue to play well. All right, let's flip to the defense.
Number 6.
The middle of the defense struggled a lot. Middle width-wise, middle depth-wise. There's a lot of catches against cover 2 behind the linebackers in front of the safeties last night. And that's the weak part of the defense. And, it's not Cam Curl and Derek Forrest, so I'm not going to freak out. But it was Cody Martin a couple times. That's not ideal. Quan Martin in the middle there had a couple of issues last night, but I do think he bounced back well overall. But they've got to get that figured out. Teams are going to attack them there. It's the place that feels the softest. I do think it will be obviously a lot harder to do when they have that defensive line, but coverage weakness last night, exploited for multiple touchdowns in the red zone, exploited in the middle of the field. That is a little concerning. As concerning as anything can be when the players on the field might not be on your roster in 2 weeks, or by the end of the week, really. But if we're going observations from the game last night, a lot of Ravens yardage and some of their touchdowns came specifically against cover 2 in the middle of the field, and some of them were over Cody Barton's head, and he is going to be on the team and on the field when the starters are out there. All right, speaking of areas that struggled last night.
Number 7.
Some issues in terms of lack of communication in the secondary. And this gets to the Quan Martin, Rashad Wild Goose snafus of the night. They actually had a little bit similar nights because there's definitely some really bad plays for Wild Goose, and there's definitely the one pretty big stinker, the Zay Flowers touchdown, where Quan Martin, and it's a confusion, and then, the pursuit's lackluster to say the least. But he doesn't give up, and neither does Wild Goose. Both those guys just continue to compete, and even when Wild Goose at the end of the first half gets picked on and he gets scored on, I'm not sure that call at the end of the first half, the touchdown on him, doesn't survive a challenge if Ron Rivera wanted to throw the flag there. I don't think he can because it's a scoring play, and it's weird that it got confirmed so quickly because Wild Goose knocks that ball out really quickly after it's secured, if it's secured, because it's a catch, it's a bobble. He's swiping at it. I guess the Ravens receiver caught it and was down, and once you catch it and you're down in the end zone, play's over. So there's no real swipe. But if that happens in the field of play, there's no way they're calling that a completion because he never completes a football move. Yet in the end zone, it is. So it's hard for me to crush Wild Goose when I look at that play and I just don't disagree with it. It's kind of like crushing Quan Martin a week ago when they called him for defensive pass interference and it wasn't defensive pass interference. Like, that's on the ref. That's not on Quan Martin. So I will give both of those guys, and obviously with Quan, after giving up the Zay Flowers play, the first touchdown, looks like he's about to get beat for another one, but he just has incredible recovery speed. He plays his technique absolutely perfect to play through the hands of the receiver, and he comes down with a pick and gets a nice return to boot, and the competitive spirit shows. And that's part of being, in his case, a second-round pick. The competitive spirit of Rashad Wild Goose is part of trying to fight for your life in the NFL and make this roster. Ultimately, when we get to our roster projection later, I don't know it's going to be enough because he has struggled on the outside at a position where he's got to be, I would say, competent to have the positional flexibility. He can't just be a good nickel to make this roster. But I, while saying that those two had issues last night, also want to commend them on their competitive character and their competitive spirit. All right, some odds and ends to wrap up here on our 1st and 10 observations. First things first here in the show.
Number 8.
The Josh Harris interview. Oh, it was so good. So incredibly awkward. So incredibly human to people who were awkward. I don't know. I got a lot of tweets asking if he was drunk. I don't know. I was texting with a reporter who's covered him for a while outside of football, and they were like, nah, that's just him. He's kind of awkward. The handshake thing. I saw my buddy Tommy Vitor from Pod Save America tweet out the video and said he would have cut his hand off if he had done the handshake thing that he did with Joe Buck. But all the awkwardness and the goofiness and the fun, and credit, like, the Commander's social media team had some fun with it afterwards, which would have happened under the old guy. And that's the point. We can laugh, we can giggle, and Josh Harris, I'm sure, is slightly embarrassed at some of that, but also is just like, whatever. What am I going to do? He seems to have the ability to laugh at himself, and people aren't scared of him. And the owner of the team gave an interview on national television for funsies. What planet do we live on? One where Dan Snyder doesn't own the team anymore, and that's awesome, and we should celebrate it at every turn, which is why I wanted to mention all of this with a gigantic smile on my face.
Number 9.
Turn that smile upside down. Let's have a frown for Cameron Cheeseman. You can't rock skip a snap back on a field goal. That's not good. We don't like that. Bad snapping. I've tried to inquire if they're going to bring in some long snappers. Have not received word from any sources quite yet. But Rivera told me last week, straight up, if they don't get the snapping issues straightened out by the game, then they're going to have to take it seriously as a potential problem. bringing in a long snapper to compete over the last couple of weeks of camp / before the regular season is not that hard to do. There's a bunch of dudes out there. There's, there's 150 Division I long snappers every single year. Let's say 80 of them, or 50 of them even, come out in the draft, and there's only 32 NFL long snapping jobs. Like, the talent pool stacks up. There's plenty of dudes who can long snap in the NFL out there. Not to be dismissive. I'm not saying I'm one of them, but there's dudes available. They got to bring one in, and if they can't get Cheeseman's technique fixed in the next couple of weeks, like, I'm sorry, Ron, the guy you traded up for, that's an issue. I don't want to go there, but I think we all know what I'm saying here. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen,
number 10.
The streak is over. We had to say it. The Commanders are the first team to beat the Baltimore Ravens in a preseason game since 2015, since Lamar Jackson was a freshman at Louisville. He hadn't even made his debut yet. And you know what? I appreciate this perspective from Ravens coach John Harbaugh when he was asked about it afterwards.
Yeah, it's just I'm excited. Think about something like that. And I just told our guys, you're proud of it, of course. You appreciate it. But the thing that you're proud of is all those games were mostly just like that. Preseason games that people want to write about. Some of you in here want to write about and say they don't mean anything because you never played the game. You never were out there in a preseason game. You never were fighting for a spot on the field. And yet you have the audacity to say that the effort that somebody puts into that to win and fight and win a game like that is meaningless. Tell me it was meaningless out there what you just saw. If you like football, is that a meaningless football game? I can't respect anybody that says that because of the effort these guys put into it. That's what you're proud of. That's why I'm so proud of these guys for the way they fought. It doesn't matter win or loss. It matters the way they went about their business tonight. And I'm proud of them for that, always will be.
Harbaugh's says some things sometimes that make you roll your eyes, but that's good stuff, man. And we can say, like, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't in terms of the two teams winning a championship. And that's all any of us that are writing about this stuff or talking about it are saying is, like, last night, the Commanders winning that game does not help them win a championship in terms of the standings and that side of it. But if we're being realistic about it, this matters to the guys on the field. Anyone who's ever competed in anything knows you want to win. Winning is better than losing 100% of the time, all the time, every time, without exception that I can think of, unless there was some kind of like weird family dynamic where you feel bad for beating your brother or something, right? And winning is a result of guys playing hard, and there is a lot on the line. These games mean everything to the guys out there at the end of them trying to make their livelihoods in the NFL with their dreams on the line. So the wins and losses are a result of that effort, and the Ravens should be proud of that. They've consistently found a depth of talent and a quality of competitive character that they won that many preseason games in a row when no one ever did. Do they get to put another Lombardi trophy in their case for it? No. Does it compare to winning an NFL playoff game or certainly a Super Bowl? Of course not. But it's not nothing. And so I don't blame Harbaugh, and I'm not going to make fun of him for caring about it on some level. Just like I'm not going to be mad at the Commanders for rubbing a little salt in the wound for ending it with their social media and the fan bases chirping and all that kind of stuff. This is what sports are about. They're fun. You compete. There's winner and there's loser. Commanders won last night. First time in a long time on that side of it for the Ravens. Congrats to the Burgundy and Gold for the victory. We get back. More breakdown. Logan Paulson's thoughts on Sam Howell's performance and more. Take command next here on The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app.
This is The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.